All right, so we're up to the 81-82 season, and that year you guys had a good team. You didn't have a big guy, but you had a center, I believe. Was it Mark Nelson that was a center?
Mark Nelson.
And he was a big, strong football player. I think played football at Bowling Green.
6'4", about 248, something like that.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about that team, and what made that team so special for you guys.
Well, we had mentioned the personnel again to remind me, but there was
You had John Lynch, Greg Montbrion, you had Nelly. I'm trying to remember who might have been the other guys that might have contributed.
Steve Hill.
Steve Hill, yep.
Yeah.
Chris West play that year, or he played a little bit that year?
But they were just a good team. I mean, there was no outstanding, well, there was, but they played well together. We had, the first game in the state tournament, we played Minneapolis North. With number one in the state, had won 22, 23 in a row or something like that. Played at Williams Arena the last game of the night. About 9 o'clock it gets going. And we played pretty well. And John Lynch, of course, was outstanding. Nelly, he'd pick up a few rebounds, which he was doing. He was a great scorer, but he did his job. Montbrion always he had a few buckets. And Steve Hill played exceptionally well all through that whole tournament. Then we get down to the state finals, and we're playing against the Dudeks. And we come here about 5:30, and we set up an offense and defense and what we're going to do. And the Dudek, we thought, well, if we can just get up, Mark, you're not going to be able to out-jump him. But if you play behind him, we can force him on the floor a little bit more. And if you can just kind of put your knees in the back of his knees and kind of take his standing up away from him. And so he did that, and that seemed to help a little bit. And then Steve Hill played very well, and John Lynch, of course, was outstanding too. So, and then it gets down to the end of the game, championship game, where Montbrion makes 10 free throws in the last quarter. Yep. So,
and then North, I believe, in '80 won the state title. I believe it was around 1980, and then Chaska had a marvelous team that year too. They had Chuck Priest and Dave Dahlke, who both went on and played basketball in college, and I think Dahlke played down at Drake, and that was a tremendous game you had. And then I went to the Chaska and the Duluth East game, and one thing I noticed was that there weren't many Jefferson fans in the stands. Do you remember why? Why the kids were on spring break?
Yes, yeah. Either that or it was a hockey tournament or something.
Yeah, and then I believe your wife got kazoos or something because the band wasn't there or something either.
That was the St. Louis Park game.
That was the St. Louis Park game.
Yeah, and that's right. We played well. Yeah. And they had the big band and everything going, and our kids, all we had was kazoos. So I got the letter. You should see it sometime. But I dug it out last week.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so you guys had that state championship. Now, John Lynch was just a very, very... I played with John in college. John was very skilled, but he was so smooth. Yeah. I mean, he just kind of played like he had no effort on the floor whatsoever. But he was an amazing player to watch. I mean, as a high school basketball player, I felt so blessed to play with him at Normandale.
Everything came easy to John.
Oh, he could do so many fantastic things on the floor. So you talked about the 81-82 team, and you were saying that they were a good group of guys that were good athletes, but their greatest asset was how well they played together. Mm-hmm. And that really seemed to be a theme throughout your entire team here. Your ability to get kids, or find kids in that case, that could play so well together. And so, what was it? How'd you figure that out?
I don't know. I always remember the teams that I played on. We always had a bunch of guys that kind of stuck around together, and I would ask them and try to give them, when you go out of school tonight, now who do you go out with? I mean, you guys go all different directions, and you do come back as a team. Why don't you do something together? You know, I always felt when we really had outstanding teams, they were pretty good on the floor and off the floor. That they had a good relationship with one another, and it's tough to play with a kid you don't like. And I didn't see that, but you see that on some other teams. And we had, I'm proud of the fact that our kids have been very, very unselfish here.
Yeah.
We've had some kids in here that could have been very, very good scorers and could have dominated the game, but they're more interested in helping the team win a ball game. And they gave up that for the team.
So you really emphasize that team point. And how much of being a good student, and not necessarily looking at a student or a player as being smart in terms of being smart, but being a good student and working hard in that, how much of a value was that in your program?
Well, I think it's it can happen the other way too.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's certainly an important part of the game. But where does instinct take over when intelligence doesn't? Some kids just know what's going to happen before it happens, and instinctively they get the pass, or they intercept, or they get the rebound, or something. But on the other hand, some study the game a little bit more than others and have success that way.
Now, the 81-82 season, and like I said, I was starting to follow successful teams around here at that time pretty closely. And you guys come off another state title. And were you aware of the aura that surrounded your teams when you went into a gym?
No, I don't know whether, you have to ask the kids whether they were or not, but I don't.
Well, I'm going to ask quite a few of them that question, because I know when I was in high school and stuff, when you guys came in the gym, it was like, it's going to be a tough night. There was an aura about Jefferson basketball teams, about not only their talent and ability, but how they were going to play together. And I always kind of looked at a lot of your teams, and it was kind of like, I'd equate it to like a snake, maybe like a python. It was kind of like a slow death. You guys would come out and just grind and grind and grind teams down and just kind of wear them out.
Well, I guess maybe it's our philosophy of what kind of game we wanted to play. If we played Minneapolis North, we weren't going to try to run up and down the floor with them. That was their game. We'd slow them down a little bit so we can get them to play our game, the kind we practice all the time. And I think maybe that's part of it too. You don't play different than when you practice.
Right, exactly. So you leave 1981-82, and 82-83 comes around, and you've got a tremendous team coming back. You have Steve Hill, you have Tim Lynch, Scott Thompson, Chris West, and then you get a point guard that comes in here named Ray Branch. And that was kind of a new dynamic for that group, I think. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we have never, ever, and still do not ever go out and try to lure a kid via transfer or whatever it may be to school. Ray left Kennedy on his own volition and enrolled here. And I didn't even know until he came here. But that was a team that they had never beaten. You're talking about the final game we lost to Edina?
Well, I was there was a game here too, the first game, the first game of the conference between Edina and Jefferson. And I was on that team, and I don't know if I've seen a high school gym that full since. We have balconies up here that were about 3 deep. You had the bleachers on the end out, and there were people sitting on top of each other there. But it was just an amazing atmosphere. I think you guys had a 37-game winning streak. And you were talking and bringing up Ray. I remember he had a steal up the sideline here, and he had this amazing shot he made on the other side of the basket. And we can show the highlight. I have it on tape. It's just deafening. It was just deafening. But all those games were just amazing games. And maybe you can add a little.
Well, and the talent you're playing against too is pretty good, and it brings, when you play someone like that, it brings out the better of your abilities too. You talk about Ray Branch. We had another athlete here that years later that used to show us something different in practice every night. I'm going to forget his name. I know I never should, but.
Is it Lane?
Huh?
Was it Lane Kiffin?
No, no. No, I think of his name now. Well, maybe I'll think of it
Okay.
eventually, but
Mike Spencer?
Mike Spencer.
Mike
yes.
Spencer.
He would show us something different in practice.
Same team, yeah.
Oh, every night. My
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and those are the type of guys that can, just with their ability, break down a defense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you try to say, well, the other guys, you're watching what he's doing, you know, when you don't have the innate talent to compete with the Ray Branch.
Right. So in '83, Jefferson and Edina just seemed to always be on a collision course that year, and we played Jefferson all the way up, and it was an intense rivalry, but it was the guys liked each other. And we get to the region final, and you talk about emotions and up and down emotions, and the end of the game, Rob Wassenaar hits a shot, which would have been a 3 nowadays, on the top of the key, and Edina goes up 1. And you guys come down, and a shot goes up on the backside, and Chris West tips it in with about 3 seconds left.
3 seconds to go, I guess.
3 seconds left. And so you go into the huddle in a situation like that. What do you tell them, the guys?
Well, we just said we're not going to let them get the ball up the floor. We're going to front the inbound pass, and you front everybody there, and you make them come back to get the ball, not advance down there where we can throw a long pass. And so with that in mind, we get the pass, and Wassenaar does get the pass in the sideline. And I don't know how many feet that he traveled before he shot the ball, but Chris
West was on the ball.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Lynch was down. I could see it coming and going in all the way. And my wife to this day will say that it was the time ran out. No, it didn't. Time didn't run out. It was just a shot that was destined to go in.
Yeah, it was, and it was in just the emotions of going through that. You know, I was on the other side, and we're up 1. Then you're down 1 with 3 seconds left, and you're thinking, you know, we've both had tremendous years, and then it comes up the sideline and the shot's hit, and it was just. I remember looking at Tim Lynch, and I think it was Steve Hill, and they were up on the baseline at Augsburg, and we went over to talk to him. I mean, both teams were very classy, I thought, and cared a lot for each other.
I think so.
Yeah.
And our Giz had never beaten you all through the years.
Yep.
So when we went up by 3 points, that was.
And I think that year it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Everybody thought Coon Rapids would have won it with Kevin Trainer and Tom Copa, who played at Marquette.
Yeah.
And they got upset too, by Del Schiffler and Woodbury. So that was quite a year. It was a very memorable year. 84 rolls along, and you got some good talent coming back. And Kennedy across the way has quite a team. You want to tell us a little bit about some of those games?
Well, yeah, we had. Those were always tough games, regardless of talent-wise. And so we had very good games with them. And that's the year that Kennedy went to the state tournament?
Yep.
Okay. And we'd zone them all the time we ever played them. And we decided to go man-to-man. And we shut them down pretty good, except that the talent played out in the air.
And that was in the region final? You guys played man against them?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they had some good players, and that was a good team that they had. So now you get to 85. You get to this run, 85, 86, 87. And tell us about the 85 team and the players that made up that team a little bit.
Well, let's see, we had, I should have looked at my scorebook a little bit more closer before talking about this, but Kevin was a sophomore.
Yeah, was Danny Grant on that team?
Danny Grant was there. Mark Peller, Sean Day, his brother John.
I can't remember many of the guards, but yeah, that was a good team.
Well, very good team, and we got beat by 2, I think it was, 52-50 or something like that, if I remember.
Against White Bear Lake?
Yeah.
And White Bear Lake was on a 2 years.
They'd won about 50 in a row, I guess, something like that.
Yeah. And so you guys lost in the semifinals, and you go to the third place game, and you play Duluth Central. and they have a coach named Jim Hastings that you guys were friends.
Yes, yeah, that's Jim Hastings, and we beat them last second shot, I think, something like that, or free throw, or one maybe. But it seemed like the closer they are, the harder they are to remember. But
and you guys played primarily at that time at St. Paul Civic Center, right? The tournament was at the Civic Center then? Most of it?
Right, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So now you get to 86, and you have another amazing team coming in. And I think 85 team, you guys won the conference. You won the region, or the region, obviously, and then you finished third place. But the 86 team, you guys didn't win the conference. And I
only lost 3 or 4 games, I think it was, during that. And I don't recall. Oh, the talent was we were playing with pretty good too. But I don't recall what the losses were about right now. But we had talent, and we believed in them, and we could see that this was going to be a good ball club.
And was the conference champion that year Apple Valley? Was Bob Martin and that group, were they the conference?
Right.
They were the conference champion. So they were a pretty stout team too.
And we didn't have anybody real big.
Okay. So in 86, you guys get to the state tournament. Do you remember your opponents of that year in the state tournament? You had Central in the final.
And I think we played team right out of Tech, was it?
It wasn't that the Tech school out of St. Paul?
Yeah, no, one out of St. Cloud.
Oh, St. Cloud Tech.
St. Cloud Tech.
St. Cloud Tech.
I think we had a 5-point game with them or something like that. It was,
okay.
We were close.
So
low scoring.
Were the games all pretty tight along the way?
Yeah.
And then you get to the final there then, and there was another tight one with Central in the final game?
Right, yeah. And we get fouled down in the end, and I forget something. John Walker makes a free throw with 3 or 4 seconds to go or something.
And seals the deal.
Clutch free throw, yeah.
Well, that's another tremendous year. And when we come back to 86 or 87, you guys pretty much mowed everybody down that you played, didn't you? I mean, there was
87?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And they were a talented group. It was all back to me. Talking about Kevin and Bannon and Mike Shear, Mark Nayrud.
Was it John Walker? Was he on the team?
No, he was the year before.
John Carter. Was it Carter?
Yes.
Carter was the year before. Right. Okay, John Carter. Yeah, the year before. And you guys really, you played the region final against Edina, who had a big team and a pretty good point guard in Craig Kluge. And that was tight maybe for a half, but then you guys just kind of took care of them down the stretch. And you get to the state tournament, and do you remember who you faced in the first round at all?
I know, with Woodbury, I'm not sure.
Might have been Woodbury?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were ranked very high, and I think we beat them by 20.
Okay. And then the semifinals, do you recall? The final that year, you had Blaine, right?
Blaine, yeah.
Yeah, you had Blaine. And
we had beaten Blaine in a holiday tournament.
Okay.
And they had a pretty good team, but we played very well, and I think confident-wise we played because we'd beaten them in that.
And this was the years, I think, when the conference went to
Duluth East. I think we played
Duluth East. Yeah. This was the year of the conference. Didn't it split into Lake Red? And didn't it go? It was organized by. Was it by football size, or I forget how they did it? But you guys ended up playing like up in Park Center a lot and stuff, and Osseo, and
right, yeah,
all up in kind of the north suburban area. So you did quite a bit of traveling that year.
Right.
Was Park Center was in the state tournament that year too, weren't they? They Mike Palmy and those guys, Wendell Ring's team. Anything else you wanted to add about that state championship team, the '87 group?
Well, they were pretty well balanced. I mean, you had guys like Kevin probably could have scored a lot more, but he was more team oriented, and Tom Bata scored very well. And he was 6'5", both of them about 6'4", 6'5". They rebounded real well. Mike Shear, not an outstanding center, but just did the job all the time, and defensively and rebound.
Were they kind of like a team that you just had on autopilot? I mean, they kind of knew the system, they knew their roles,
so. and a total team on and off the floor. They still do a lot of things together. And Jeff's golf tournament, they'll come together and go. And that's important. I wish that you could see more of that with kids today.
Well, the one thing I recall about that group, my sophomore year at Normandale, we used to have open gym, and all these little guys in their blue Jefferson uniforms came down, and we're going to play against the college guys. Well, they're freshmen in high school at the time, and we really didn't know who they were. They're freshmen are not very big kids or whatever, but I remember playing and a shot going up, and I looked up at the rim, and this kid came over the top of the rim with two hands and just dunked it. And it was Kevin, as a ninth grader. And that was the first time I was made aware of him, because Johnny was there scrimmaging with it. That's my little brother. And I was like, wow, we have a few good years around there coming up here.